don't know me, I'm Dr. Shannon, and I'm a chiropractor. That's the doctor part of my name, but I mostly do clinical nutrition. So I help people improve their life and their health with good food, supplementation, some herbs, and lifestyle change. In addition to doing chiropractic, I do that as well. Okay. So we're going to talk tonight about the things in your life that may be negatively impacting your brain and memory, and things you can do that would improve your brain and your memory. So I have brain at the top of this triangle here. And some of you have seen me present this before, but essentially what we do around here in our approach to health is that if you have something going wrong with your brain, so it can be extreme, it can be, major lapses in memory, something as extreme as Alzheimer's, all the way down to, I don't know, I walk into a room and I can't seem to remember why I went there, or I'm trying to have a conversation with somebody and I can't think of the word that I'm trying to think of, even though it's a common word, right? We've experienced that to a lesser or greater degree, all of us. So those are all going to fall under the category of brain. Anything to do with memory, short-term memory, long-term memory. And also just cognitive function, so the ability to think clearly. Brain fog is a word that a lot of people use, just that clarity of thought that we all want to have that is sometimes lacking. And also I deal with brain injuries, so people who have had concussions or a traumatic brain injury, sometimes once, sometimes repeatedly. All of those things would fall under the category of symptoms involving the brain. So when something's going wrong with the brain, what I am trying to do, and what Emily, our other practitioner, is trying to do, is identify the underlying reason why the brain's not working well. So we're going to be testing the body using nutrition response testing, which I'll demonstrate for you. Most of you have seen it. You might not understand it, so I'll explain it a little bit better. So using that, we're going to identify which organs in the body are dysfunctioning, and it might be the brain, but it might not. So we test the brain when we muscle test, but you can also test the heart and the liver and the kidneys, and all of those could be impacting how your brain works. So I'll explain how that is. So we're trying to identify which organ is dysfunctioning, and then we're going to determine which nutrient that organ is missing that's making it dysfunction. And if we can do that and we can put in the nutrition that's missing, then the brain works better. Which is a nice idea, right? So the reason this is in a triangle like this is because if you have brain symptoms, then we know that there's an organ that's dysfunctioning and a nutrient that's missing. And that will lead to more brain symptoms and more deficiencies. It's like a cycle. So I'll try to explain a little better. So if your brain's not working great, your body's having to sort of struggle. It's using up B vitamins, it's using up minerals, it's using up things that your other organs might need, and that contributes to other organ dysfunction and more nutrient deficiency, so it gets into this cycle. So what we're trying to do is break the cycle. We're going to supply the nutrients that are needed, either through food or through supplementation, usually a little bit of both. And by doing that, the organ that we're working on will improve, and then the symptoms will go away, whatever they are for you. And we can do this with any sort of symptom. I happen to put brain because we're talking about it, but it could be if you're having high blood pressure, or you're having diabetes, or you're having depression. Any of those things could be symptoms that can improve with this type of approach. Makes sense, right? Good. So most of the time, if you have symptoms, in this case we're talking about brain, so we'll stick with that. Hi, ladies. If you go to the medical doctor and you have a symptom, like let's say you have, trouble thinking clearly, and they say, oh, you're having some issues with, pre-dementia, or like leading into that. There's medications that they actually would have people take for that to try to slow down dementia or slow down Alzheimer's. That's a thing. So really that's a Band-Aid, and it's really covering up the symptom. It's not really getting to the underlying cause. So medications will impact the body in a certain way, but it's not going to actually fix the problem. It might slow it down, it might make it look better on blood work, it might make it look a little bit better from a symptom standpoint, but long term it's not going to actually correct the problem. We know this to be true for most medications. So antibiotics, yes, they kill bacteria, but oftentimes after the fact you have more bacteria because your immune system gets weaker, And if you're putting something into the brain that changes the brain chemistry, then other parts of the brain chemistry will change. So the side effects of medications that impact the nervous system are things that you're trying to get rid of in the first place. So for instance, if you take something for depression, oftentimes you feel more depressed, or maybe you feel anxious, or maybe you have trouble sleeping. So, you know, there's some interactions there in the nervous system. It's not the most ideal approach. So what we like to do instead is find the underlying cause, fix it, and then the brain works better. And like I said, it can be very mild, where you're just having trouble remembering a few things, or it can be even more severe with actual dementia or pre-dementia. So we'll talk about that. So I'm always interested in finding out specifically per individual which organ is the problem. So in order to do that, we use a nutrition response testing, like I mentioned. So Mike's going to be my assistant tonight, so I can demonstrate this for you and explain it in a different way than maybe you've seen before. So when we muscle test someone, what we're using is the muscles in their shoulder as a measuring device. So that's all it is. It doesn't have anything to do with his shoulder. We're just trying to get the body to tell us this is good or this is not good. So when I'm testing, I'm pushing down on his arm, and he's just holding it up. It's easy for him to do that. He's a strong guy. And I'm using this muscle here. So if I were going to test his brain to see if it's doing well, I'm actually going to put pressure on different parts of the brain. So I can check the front of the brain, the top of the brain, this part. Oftentimes with memory, we find that the sides of the brain will test weak. So let's say that I touch here and his arm goes weak. That's his body saying this area is lacking blood flow, energy, nutrition, all of the above. So when we find that, then we're going to look for something to correct it. So we can check B vitamins, fish oil, minerals. There's actual supplements that we have that contain brain, not from humans. That would be weird. But from cows, sheep, things like that. So we can actually take brain in supplement form, and it will actually repair the brain, which is pretty cool, right? Yeah. Or you can eat brain if you're into that sort of thing. Neil? No?
Well, I mean, back in Texas, they had a thing called brain sausage.
Yeah, brain sausage, head cheese.
Head
right?
cheese?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a thing. So most people get squeamish about that, but there is a reason that is in our historical diets. It's actually good for us. So if you want to grab one of those supplements there, we're just pretending this is something for his brain. I don't know what it is. It's not really, but we're going to pretend. So if this were the supplement that his brain needed, if it was the nutrients he was lacking, when I put that here in his hand and I come back, I would actually get a strong response. It would change the response because his body can detect what's in that vial, and it's not going to correct anything until he actually ingests it over a period of time, but it's a way of analyzing what's actually missing. So if it wasn't for him, then it would stay weak and he would put that down and we would find something else that would be better for him. And in this way, we can 100% customize a program for whatever the situation is for each person, which is the idea. And if you grab our little energy stick there, the way this works really is based on electrical flow in the body. So we're testing the nerve endings, which are electric in nature. So this little vial here, little vial, it's not a vial, it's a tube. This will be fun. If I touch both ends, I can light it up. It's just got a little bit of aluminum foil here, and that's just me completing a circuit. So if Mike touches that with his right hand, there you go, good, and then he puts his left hand out like this, so I can make a connection with him in a circuit. And that's really what we're doing with the muscle testing. We're just finding out, is the circuit broken or is it complete? And if it's broken, you get a weak response, and that supplement will patch it temporarily, which is amazing, right? It's so much fun. Okay, sir, thank you. So in this way, we know exactly what the body needs because the body's telling us. That's why we get really great results in a shorter amount of time without guessing than most people who are trying to sort of just pick and choose. And that way you don't have to take every supplement on the planet to try to fix the problem, which is nice, right? Has anyone tried that? It's expensive and it doesn't work that well. But, I mean, it doesn't hurt you, but it doesn't always help. All right, so the idea here is that there's many, many different things that could cause symptoms involving the brain. Sometimes it's the brain, specifically, but sometimes it isn't. Sometimes the liver is not clearing toxins appropriately. So toxins like chemicals in our environment, and particularly heavy metals, or any kind of metal, will actually collect in the brain and create problems with memory. So let's say your liver's not working well and you can't clear out toxins, because that's what the liver does, that could contribute then to problems in the brain. So someone might have a brain problem, but their program is really more to address their liver or their kidneys or their bowel. So they call the gut, your intestines, the second brain, because that's where a lot of the chemicals that help us with our brain are actually produced. And when you have any dysfunction in the gut, so that would include liver, gallbladder, intestines, any dysfunction in that area can contribute to brain symptoms. So a lot of times when people are having trouble with words, where you say, I can't find the word I'm looking for, you know, you're in the middle of a conversation, a lot of times that's actually a blood sugar issue. So that would be digestive, where your body's not balancing blood sugar correctly, because either you ate too much sugar, or once upon a time you ate too much sugar and the body quite hasn't figured out how to fix itself from that. Some of us are sugar recovered addicts, right? Some of us are in recovery. Some of us are working on being in recovery, and some of us maybe haven't thought about it yet. But I'll tell you that it is the key to getting our brains to work well. Because too much sugar will sabotage these electrical connections in your brain, and it will make it very hard to keep your cognitive function. So you'll see this with kids in school, like the ones that have the most trouble concentrating, especially if they're hyper. I mean, that's a problem, right? And that's definitely sugar. We know that because you feed sugar to a kid, what happens? They start bouncing off the walls, right? In adults, we fall asleep. Right? You're high for a minute and then you go. Yeah, so the reason is because you had too much sugar as a kid or over your lifetime that used to make you hyper, and now it just kind of like puts you to sleep because your body goes, I give up. I didn't want that. Thanks anyway, I'll take a nap now. But that's what's happening with your brain on a smaller level if you're having too much sugar in your diet. And that can be outright sugars, or it can be too much fruit, it can be too much starchy foods. It's different for all of us, but all of it matters and all of it affects our brain. So you'll see with dementia, they're actually calling it, it's kind of like a type of diabetes. And if you look in certain literature, Alzheimer's is considered imbalance of the sugars in the blood, like a type of diabetes that's actually coming out. So that's type 3 diabetes is what they call it. So we know it's sugar, right? I know I'm a broken record, sorry. I have nothing original to say. I put different topics on my board and I just keep talking about sugar. Sorry. Sorry to be so predictable. All right. So we know that sugar, carbohydrates, things that turn into sugar, processed foods, absolutely impact the brain in a negative way. And you say, thank you for the reminder, Dr. Shannon. It's been 2 weeks since I heard you say that. All right, good. So that's key. So the thing that we want to include in our diet that's often missing or lacking in order to keep our brains working and fueled is fat. Good quality fats. So we want to increase good quality fats in the diet. Now, if you have trouble doing this because your digestion won't tolerate it, that means we need to work on your gallbladder. And if you don't have a gallbladder, that means we need to give you some support so your body thinks you have a gallbladder. But that can be done. But that's very important. So you have to have a high-fat diet and good quality fats. So when we talk about good quality fats, we're talking about things like coconut oil, lard, tallow, butter. Now, the quality of these foods matters, so you want to get them from healthy animals, ideally animals that get to walk around and eat grass, and are pastured animals, organic, or better than organic. Some of the farms are not certified organic, but a lot of the food that they produce is actually better than what you can get organic in the grocery store. And we have resources for this, so if you need a reminder or recommendation on farms to use or where to get good quality food, we can help you with that. So good quality butter. Olive oil is good. You want to have it, you don't want to cook with it. You don't want to put it at high temperature. It's better if you use it on a very low temperature or just put it on your food cold. So put it on your vegetables after you've cooked them, put it on your salads. It's good for that. Nut oils can be good too. Sesame oils and things like that. And then the type of fat that's found in good quality protein. So we talked lard and tallow. So lard would be found in pork, tallow is found in beef. Usually, you cut all the fat off the edge, right? But maybe you could eat it if you want. I recommend dark meat chicken. That's much better than white meat chicken. And it has good fat in it, and it's actually satisfying and tastes amazing. And then you can also look at doing things like eggs, good quality bacon, things like this that are higher in fat. And then fish. So there's a lot of talk about fish oil. It's hard to find clean fish because we've done a really good job of polluting our waters. However, fish oil, at least the kind that I use, and a lot of brands do this, not all of them, so you have to be careful. But most fish oil is cleaned, so it's cleaned of metals before it's put into capsule form. So a lot of us, instead of eating fish, if we can't find a trusted source, the fish oil comes in handy. Fish oil is particularly amazing when it comes to the brain. So the things that use fish oil most would be your heart and your brain. Your heart needs fat in order to do its job well. In particular, omegas are very good at helping with circulation and heart health. So giving someone good quality fish oil, good quality fat in their diet will absolutely increase energy, makes your brain so much sharper. You can go for longer periods of time without having to eat, without your energy lagging, and it will actually, many people have reversed dementia by doing this. I mean, you have to eat a lot. Like I've read many stories from people. Oh yeah, I gave my spouse 8 tablespoons of coconut oil every day, and after 2 months, their brain worked better. Like they were actually going into dementia. So, I mean, that's a pretty easy fix, really, when you think about it, right? If you were starting to lose your mind, I would rather eat 8 tablespoons of coconut oil than some other options, right? That's right. So these are all things that it's better to do it now than as your mind starts to go. Okay, so this is how we want to be starting to eat or moving towards eating in order to maintain our cognitive function. This is still true for children. Okay, so children eat way too little fat and way too much sugar. The foods that are marketed for children are mostly carbohydrates, Pop-Tarts, ketchup. I mean, all of it. It's all just loaded with sugar. When you look at the type of food that they eat, it's hard to get them to eat protein. It's hard to get them to eat fat if they're eating a lot of the other stuff. If they're eating a lot of carbohydrates, then you put steak in front of them and they're like, give me the mac and cheese, right? I was like that as a kid. And so the key is to start this early or to try to transition them once you know the truth, because it's much harder later to undo these habits. So I see a lot of people that are used to going to, trying to lose weight, so they're going to Weight Watchers or, something like that, some sort of weight loss program, and they're telling them to restrict fat, low fat diet, low calorie diet. Those are terrible for your brain. Low calorie, low fat diet is terrible for your brain. You don't need you don't need 3,000 calories a day. But if you're eating good quality fat and good quality protein and limiting your sugars, your total calorie intake is really not that high because you don't need as much food to keep you satisfied. So that part works itself out. So definitely you want to be focusing on lower sugar, higher fat. And then the protein comes along with this because you're having eggs, there's protein in that. If you're having nuts and seeds, there's protein in that. Having fish or chicken. Okay? So those are the main things. So vegetables are nice because vegetables help to support detoxification. They support normal bowel movements. They provide fiber. And you want to have enough fiber in your diet, especially fermented fiber if you can get it. So we talk about things like sauerkraut. Anybody like sauerkraut? I'm a big fan, yeah. Spicy sauerkraut, which is kimchi. So different apple cider vinegar, those types of things help the good bugs in your intestines grow better, and so does fiber. And if you do that, then you can actually get more nutrients out of your food, and you can keep your gut healthy, which we already talked about is your second brain. Yes, sir?
Age. Does age affect your brain?
Well, it does in the sense that the longer you've been on the planet, the more likely you are to have been accumulating toxins, right? So we do accumulate toxins. Our bodies are meant to detoxify as we go around. I mean, we would not be here talking if we weren't on some level clearing out toxins all the time.
Okay.
So your lungs, your skin, your liver, your bowels, your kidneys are all cleaning the blood, pushing stuff out into the sewer, or you're breathing it out. We're exposed to so many more toxins now than we were even 5 or 10 years ago. I mean, it's escalating because we love chemicals. We, as a society, I mean, not you and me, but we love chemicals. We know we put chemicals on everything. Go into any hardware store, right? See how many chemicals are in one aisle. It's like ridiculous, the amount of stuff. And we have to have a different chemical for everything. And if you're a female, you have a different chemical for straightening your hair and curling your hair and washing your hair and conditioning your hair and styling your hair, right? It's like, you know, you go into a bathroom, like American bathroom, you're like, oh my gosh, you got 50 things on the countertop here, makeups, all that stuff. Those all have chemicals. And then some of it's in the environment, not just what we're using in our homes. So those will accumulate if your body's not working optimally. So that's why we talk about making sure that you're eating a diet that supports detoxification. So ideally not putting more chemicals in your body in the form of food, right? So when we talk about organic foods or pastured foods, foods that are higher quality, they're going to be lower in toxins, as opposed to eating something processed, which is a lot of chemicals. That's why you can't pronounce the names and the ingredient list, right? Because a lot of it's chemicals, and usually high in carbohydrates and low in good quality fat. So by eating real food, you're supporting detoxification, which is going to help the body push out chemicals and metals. So sometimes it's more complicated than that. I mean, there's very specific things that we do here when someone's on a program to make sure that the metals and the chemicals are clearing from their body, because we're testing for those all the time. But that's key. So the longer you're on the planet, the more of that you accumulate, and the more usually sugar and processed food you eat if you're not paying attention, right? If you don't know what we know. So that will affect your cognitive function. But younger and younger, I see people, you know, I have people coming in their 30s and like, I can't think straight, you know, I can't remember stuff, memory problems, my brain doesn't work well, I have brain fog, and that's younger and younger. So it's not really age related, it's exposure related. Yeah, but it can be undone. That's the important part. That's the takeaway. It's not all doom and gloom, all right? If you're eating the right way and you're working on your diet and supporting your organs, then your body can clear this stuff out. So metals come primarily from the environment, so they're in a lot of the things that they spray on the lawns, and I mean they're in aluminum cans, right? Aluminum foil. Aluminum is hugely damaging to our brains, and it's one of the things that they find when they go into the brain and look in someone who has neurological diseases. So aluminum is in more like a cookware. So if you worry about aluminum cookware, there's risk of exposure for Teflon. So those types of things. So what you cook in matters. And these are all things that, you know, again, recommendations and resources, specific things if these are areas of your life that you need help with. So if you need a new deodorant because you don't want to rub aluminum antiperspirant on your armpits, I can help you with that. But that's one of the main reasons that people get aluminum in their bodies. We actually put it right on. It's in a lot of makeups. Metals are in makeup. You know, long wearing lipstick. Lead is in there. Yeah, I mean, it's like crazy the stuff that they allow to put. Yeah, all kinds of metal. And then what do? You lick it, right? You're like licking it all day long, and you know it lasts, but it doesn't last all forever, right? So eventually it makes its way into the body. So all these things that are put into our products, there's just not good regulation. It all comes down to money. That's a whole other lecture, but it doesn't matter. The important thing is when you know that that's happening, then you can do something about it. So that's why we care about natural makeups. That's why we care about natural skincare and natural deodorants, because we don't want to be putting extra toxins and therefore extra stress on our brains. Makes sense, right? I know many people that as soon as they are exposed to a scent, that I'm one of them, like perfume, my brain does not work. I go like really strong perfume or cologne, go by somebody out in public, or maybe they're unfortunately sitting next to me on an airplane or something. Ugh, I cannot think straight. My brain just goes haywire. It's neurotoxic. Perfumes, artificial perfumes, which is what most things contain, and that's Febreze, and that's your plug-ins, it's all that stuff. Those artificial perfumes are neurotoxic, and that means they kill brain cells. They kill nerve cells. That's crazy, right? So we're just spraying them into our environment. Oh, isn't this lovely? Doesn't my bathroom smell great? Well, it smells great. I just can't, I can't think straight for 20 minutes after I use it, but it's great. It doesn't smell. So those are the types of things that, when you really start cleaning up your diet and cleaning up your environment, you'll start to notice that. You become much more aware of, and people who wear cologne all the time or wear perfumes all the time, they don't even smell it anymore. And they don't realize that it's affecting them negatively until they stop. And then if they try to go back to it, oh, that'll feel terrible. So people get migraines from it, right? And I know lots of people that get migraine headaches, asthma attacks, things like that, just from the exposure to the chemicals. So it's important to be eating well so that your body can be more resistant to these types of things. And we have the extra added stress in 2019 of electromagnetic fields, which are crazy. You can't really go anywhere anymore, unfortunately even to the Upper Peninsula anymore, without getting into electromagnetic fields. Even if your cell phone's off, even if you don't have Wi-Fi in your house, your car gives off electromagnetic fields, and there's cell towers everywhere. It used to be that when we'd go camping, 10 years ago we'd go camping in the UP, couldn't get a signal on your phone, which was a relief. Yes, 3 days without cell service, and I don't have to talk to anybody, they can't find me. Now you can pretty much get cell service anywhere. There's patches where you can't, but you can get it a lot more places than you used to be able to. And now they're going from 4G to 5G, and 5G, from the studies I've seen, are much more damaging to our brains and to our bodies. And that's going to be throughout the United States. So again, this isn't to scare you, but it's the reality of the world that we live in. And the stronger you are and the better fed you are, and the better your body's able to detoxify from these things, the more resilient you'll be. And the less it will affect you. I mean, it affects us all on some level, but at least we have a fighting chance, and we're not just going to be, knocked down. Like, people don't realize this is happening, they're going to be in much worse off shape than us. Okay? So, as far as that goes, cell phones, please don't sleep with them next to your head. At least turn them onto airplane mode at the very least. And then definitely when it comes to Wi-Fi, that should be shut off at night. So if you have Wi-Fi in your house, just turn it off before you go to bed. And if you have kids in your house and they're going to complain because they want to lay in bed for 2 hours, you're saving them too. That's fine. I'm sorry, the Wi-Fi's off. You're just going to have to go to sleep. What a terrible idea, right? Like, go to bed and sleep. Like, no, you cannot stay up till 2 a.m. on your phone. You have to go to sleep now. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Because I'll tell you the other thing, the other little secret about what makes your brain work better: sleep. Adequate sleep. The ideal time to be in bed winding down is 10 p.m. And after 10:30, your brain, your body starts a sort of new cycle, and that new cycle is going to make it harder for you to get all the restful sleep that you need, and it might make it hard for you to sleep at all. So you kind of miss a window. So some people, if they go to bed too late, they can't sleep at all. They don't realize that's why. That's what's happening. But if you're in bed by 10 and you're falling asleep by 10:30, you'll be much better off. You'll have more restful sleep, your body will recover better, and you'll have more likelihood of actually staying asleep, falling asleep and staying asleep all night. So I've helped lots of people over the years with brain fog, especially going perimenopause. When perimenopause comes around or menopause comes around, a lot of women start to have a lot of trouble sleeping for various reasons. Often hot flashes, but sometimes it's just that the hormones are shifting and it's harder for them to get into a good sleep cycle. But I'll tell you that changing the schedule helps, and cutting out sugar. The #1 cause of hot flashes, sugar. So, I've seen women, oh yep, I'm doing good, and then 1 glass of wine, forget it. Can't sleep all night. Or, I had 1 cookie, and hot flashes just come up. So there's many reasons for that, and that's another lecture, but I'll just throw it in since we're talking about it. But getting good sleep for kids, for teenagers, in teenagers I mostly see anxiety as a side effect of not enough sleep, but I see it of course in adults and younger children as well. But definitely it can affect your cognitive function. We know that, right? I mean, the studies are, it's just as bad to drive sleep deprived as it is to drive drunk, right? Like your reflexes are not good, and you're more, just as likely or more to run off the road or have problems. So we know that it affects you that way, but it certainly can affect you on a day-to-day basis on how clearly you're thinking and how well you feel. And when you're sleep deprived, does anyone ever notice what happens when you're sleep deprived? As far as what you want to eat?
Bad.
You want to eat bad, sugar. You will absolutely crave sugar and carbohydrates when you are tired and sleep deprived. And it actually, my experience has been that I'm hungrier, like I can't get satisfied. If I get sleep deprived, I have a 6-month-old, so it happens occasionally. And so when she has a bad night of sleep, oh my gosh, I'm just starving. I wake up hungry and I can't get satisfied all day long, even though I'm eating good quality food. So that obviously would have implications in if you're having trouble losing weight, if your appetite's too high, if you feel hungry all the time, or you can't get things stable, sleeping better or sleeping earlier would certainly impact that. So you sleep better with the Wi-Fi off, you sleep better with the cell phone off, sleep better to go to bed a little earlier.
So what if your sleep cycle is earlier than 10 p.m.? Should you
That's
be?
great.
Oh, it's
Yeah, that's good. That's
Okay.
good. This is like the cutoff lateness, yeah. So beyond that, you get into trouble. But yeah, lots of people go to bed 8:30, 9 o'clock, no problem. And that's good. And then you just get up earlier. Yeah. That works. You're the productive sunrise people. So these types of things implemented, and you know, if you're used to going to bed at midnight, you can't just all of a sudden say, well, I'm gonna go to bed, it's 10 o'clock. Dr. Shannon said I should be in bed at 10 o'clock. Because then you're gonna lay there for an hour and a half thinking about how you don't like me very much. Because you could be doing something else as you're laying in bed. So you have to cut it back slowly. So just like when we talk about reducing sugar in your diet, you know, you don't go from 10 Cokes a day to no Cokes a day, because you feel terrible and your body will not like you and your friends will not like you. And you might get in some trouble at work because you don't like any of them either. You know, I mean, it's this whole thing. You want to go gradually. So that's also true for bedtime. So if you're used to going to bed at midnight, then you work on going to bed by 11:30 for a couple weeks. And then you go to 11. And then you go, you know, you got to work it back. And so your body can get used to the change. Even if we think psychologically that we're going to be gung-ho, I can do it, you know. It's not the best thing. It's not the best plan. Because if you just suddenly switch your entire diet and your entire sleep cycle and all of that, your body will rebel. And then you'll be in a pickle, at least short term. It's not worth it. Don't suffer. Just do it gradual. All right? Yes, ma'am.
What about falling asleep to television?
Falling
What's
asleep to
your
television? Well, it's probably not
Not me.
ideal. Yeah, I know. I figured that out. I knew it wasn't you. It's not going to be the best. For one thing, I mean, it's a lot of stimulus, right? The blue light, one of the problems that a lot of people have with sleeping, which I could mention, in addition to Wi-Fi and electromagnetic fields, is the blue light exposure. So ideally, our body should know that it's time to start winding down around 7, 8 p.m. when the sun sets, a little bit later in the summer, because there's less light. And so your brain starts to say, oh, I should make a little bit of melatonin, and I should start to go into a sleep cycle, like actually wind down. So in this day and age, we're surrounded by light, especially if we're looking at our phones, right? Or we're looking at a TV, or we have lots of lamps on, LEDs, things like that. So ideally, you don't want to expose yourself to too much of that type of light. If it's just for noise, you know, in the background, that's probably not that big of a deal, especially if you can cover it, like the actual light's not getting to you. The noise part wouldn't be as much of a problem, but the light part, it is a problem. It'll disrupt the sleep cycle.
Are those types of TVs better than tube TVs?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
No, because it's still giving off the blue light. I mean, so when you look at your phone, I know a lot of phones will say you can switch it to the blue light filter, or you can like take the blue light out of it, but it's still like that type of light stimulus. It still is affecting our brains. So depending on the person, to a greater or lesser degree, but it will disrupt the normal sleep patterns. So I even recommended for people who really have trouble sleeping, you can actually put on yellow glasses, like blue blocker glasses, and wear those around. So if you wanna have lights on, TV on, phone on, by 8 p.m., 8:30, you should really have the blue blockers on, and that'll start to tell your brain, okay, it's time to wind down, okay, it's time to get into more of a sleep type cycle. So that can really help.
Are
Yes.
there other colors that are good for sleeping, or just no light
Well,
at all?
yeah, the yellow, oh, you mean as far as light goes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert on the like types of lamps and stuff like that.
Okay.
The idea is to keep the overall light low after 8:30, and then 8:30, keep the overall light low, and then limit the blue light to 0 or as close to 0 as possible. So doing, salt lamps or low level lamps or something like that would be better
Oh.
than the bright kind of lamps. And you can get, those glasses on Amazon for $6. You want, they're just like safety glasses, they're not that glamorous, but you can buy glamorous ones if you wanna drop some more money on them, but if you're just wearing them around the house, don't bother. That's the type of thing, like if you're going on an airplane flight, you're going to a different time zone or something like that, or you're gonna be on the flight and it's late at night, but you wanna be ready to go to sleep when the flight starts, wearing glasses. You'll see people in the airport with the yellow glasses on, just to keep their circadian rhythms more in line with their normal time zone, and so they're able to sleep. But that's key, sleep is key. So you gotta have plenty of sleep, you gotta eat plenty of fat, you gotta limit your sugars and your processed foods, and then try to limit the toxins in your environment. Which, by the way, is the recipe for not only your brain, but your whole body. I know, I told you, no original material. It's all the same, in a different package. Okay? Any other questions? Comments, concerns? Are you ready for bed? You gotta put your glasses on. In about half an hour, you gotta put our glasses on.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, ma'am.
Are the fats listed in a specific order, or just?
No.
Okay.
Yep, all the above, but a combination is best. So you wanna have different types of fat, not just eat. Like I know people that are like, I always cook with olive oil, I put olive oil in everything, and it's like, no, you should diversify. Definitely. Okay? All right, awesome, thank you very much. We can turn off by Facebook.